On a long-haul flight, an elderly woman named Edith found herself seated next to a restless child who seemed intent on making her journey uncomfortable. Despite her attempts to remain patient, the child's continuous poking, prodding, and loud remarks showed no signs of stopping. The child's mother, engrossed in her book, finally looked up, her face turning pale as she witnessed Edith's unexpected response to her child's behavior. Nicole knew she probably had to be a bit ashamed for how much she had lost track of her daughter's behavior when she was reading her book. It was just so enthralling that she could not pull herself away from the pages. She only noticed it when the next to her asked her to take control of the girl who was sitting on the other side of the aisle. But she was already too late. When Nicole finally turned her attention to her daughter Deed, the girl had already fallen completely silent, and the old woman next to her was sitting with a smirk on her face. A lot of people were looking angrily in Nicole's direction. She pouted her hand up and apologized for being so absent-minded, and she personally went over to the old lady to say, "Sorry." But Edith just smiled and told Nicole not to worry. She had already taken care of it. Those words made Nicole raise an eyebrow. She looked at her daughter, who was staring at the charge in front of her nearly motionless. Nicole asked Edith what she had done or said, but she just smiled and went back to reading her book. Nicole wanted to ask a lot more questions because she had never seen her daughter like this, and she was getting a bit worried. But with everybody around her having been really annoyed due to Deed, it was probably not a good idea to get mad with the person who had finally silenced her. But she wanted to figure out what happened before the plane landed. The next hour, Nicole could not keep her mind off Deed's behavior. She was quiet as a church mouse and was not even playing on her iPad or the airplane screen. This was not normal at all. Whatever this old lady had done to Deed, it had some serious effect on her, and Nicole was not about to just accept that. She stood up, took Nicole by the hand, and into the bathroom. In the cramped airplane bathroom, Nicole gently turned Deed towards her, her eyes filled with maternal concern. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice laced with worry. But Deed, her eyes wide and distant, gave no response. The silence was deafening. Nicole's heart pounded with unease as she searched her daughter's face for any sign of distress. Deed remained unnervingly still, her silence hanging heavily in the air, a stark contrast to the usual liveliness that defined her. "Did that lady say something to you, Deed?" Nicole probed, her voice a mix of worry and frustration. She watched Deed's expression intently, seeking any hint of a reaction. But Deed's gaze was fixed on a distant point, her lips sealed tight. Nicole's questions grew more urgent, each one echoing off the bathroom walls, unanswered. The lack of response from her usually talkative daughter was both confusing and deeply concerning. Nicole's mind raced with troubling thoughts. Why is she not speaking? What could have possibly happened in that short time? The thought of Edith's mysterious demeanor troubled her. Did she threaten Deed? Or worse, scare her? Nicole's protective instincts surged. Answers were needed, yet the silence from her typically chatty daughter was puzzling, leaving her feeling both baffled and deeply worried. "Please, Deed, talk to Mommy," Nicole begged, her voice quivering with desperation. She crouched to Deed's level, trying to meet her eyes. "We can fix whatever it is," she reassured, her tone soft yet insistent. Her hand gently cradled Deed's face, hoping for her daughter to utter just a single word. But Deed remained silent, her eyes empty and distant, as if lost in a world of her own. With a heavy heart, Nicole led Deed back to their seats. Each step felt like a journey, laden with a growing sense of helplessness and unease. She cast a fleeting glance at Edith, now engrossed in her book, seemingly oblivious to their distress. Settling into her seat, Nicole's mind was a tumult of concern and confusion. "What has happened to my little girl?" she wondered, feeling overwhelmed and lost in the situation. Nicole emerged from the bathroom, her face flushed with a mix of anger and desperation. Each step felt heavy, fueled by a growing storm of emotions. "How dare she do this to my child?" she thought, her mind replaying Deed's uncharacteristic silence. The urge to confront Edith was overwhelming. She felt a fierce protectiveness over Deed, her maternal instincts pushing her towards demanding answers, no matter the cost. With determined strides, Nicole marched down the aisle. Passengers glanced up, sensing the tension in her swift, purposeful walk. Her eyes were fixed ahead, locked on the figure of Edith, who seemed engrossed in her book. The murmurs of the cabin faded into the background as Nicole's focus narrowed. The need for confrontation, for understanding, propelled her forward, ignoring the curious stares of her fellow passengers. Nicole reached Edith, her voice sharp with accusation. "What did you do to my daughter?" she demanded, her tone laced with anger. Edith looked up, startled by the confrontation. Nicole's hands were trembling, her heart pounding in her chest. She needed answers, and she needed them now. The fear of not knowing what had transpired between Deed and this stranger gnawed at her, fueling her anger. Edith's expression shifted to one of confusion as she calmly denied any wrongdoing. "I didn't do anything to your daughter," she responded, her voice steady. This calm denial only served to intensify Nicole's frustration. How could this woman sit there so peacefully after having such a disturbing effect on Deed? Nicole's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and anger, struggling to make sense of the situation. The confrontation quickly escalated, drawing the attention of the cabin crew. Sensing the growing hostility, they intervened promptly. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down," one of the crew members said firmly, stepping between Nicole and Edith. The reality of the situation hit Nicole. She was causing a scene, but her maternal instincts and fear for her daughter's well-being overshadowed the embarrassment of the public spectacle. Nicole's voice rose, piercing the hum of the airplane's engines. "Tell me what you did," she demanded, her words echoing through the cabin. Passengers turned in their seats, their eyes wide with curiosity and concern. The intensity in Nicole's voice mirrored the panic and confusion swirling within her. She stood there, amidst the sea of faces, feeling both exposed and resolute, her demand for answers resonating in the confined space. Edith, still seated and remarkably calm, looked genuinely confused. "I assure you, I did nothing harmful," she replied, her voice a stark contrast to Nicole's agitated tone. This calm assertion only deepened Nicole's perplexity and frustration. How could this woman, who seemed to have caused such a drastic change in Deed, claim innocence with such composure? Nicole's mind raced, trying to reconcile Edith's serene demeanor with the turmoil she felt. The argument intensified, with Nicole's accusations becoming more fervent. Edith's consistent denials only fueled the fire. The surrounding passengers watched, some with disapproval, others with concern. The cabin felt smaller, the air heavier, as the tension mounted. Nicole's desperation to uncover the truth clashed with Edith's composed denials, creating an atmosphere charged with emotion and uncertainty. The cabin crew, sensing the situation spiraling out of control, stepped in decisively. "Ma'am, you need to return to your seat now," one of the crew members said firmly to Nicole. Their tone brooked no argument. Reluctantly, Nicole allowed herself to be led away, her gaze lingering on Edith. The crew's intervention, while necessary, felt like a barrier to the answers she so desperately sought. Nicole sat in her new seat, physically separated from Edith, but mentally still entangled in the confrontation. Her mind was a whirlwind of unanswered questions, each one amplifying her anxiety. She glanced at D-Day, who remained eerily silent beside her. The rest of the flight stretched before her like an eternity, each minute filled with worry and a deep sense of helplessness. Nicole, now seated rows away from Edith, felt a storm of resentment brewing within her. The unanswered questions gnawed at her, each one echoing in her mind with no resolution in sight. She replayed the confrontation over and over, her thoughts spiraling. The distance from Edith did little to quell her turmoil. If anything, it intensified her need for answers, leaving her feeling isolated in her confusion and anger. As Nicole sat stewing in her seat, her anger simmered just below the surface. She felt utterly powerless, trapped in a situation with no clear solution. The murmurs of other passengers seemed distant, irrelevant to the tumult within her. Her mind cycled through various scenarios, each one leaving her more unsettled. The inability to protect and understand her daughter's sudden change weighed heavily on her, deepening her sense of frustration. Beside Nicole, D-Day remained silent, her presence a constant reminder of the day's strange events. This uncharacteristic quietness from her usually vivacious daughter only deepened Nicole's worry. She occasionally glanced at Deed, hoping for even the slightest sign of her normal self, but found none. This persistent silence was like a wall between them, one that Nicole felt helpless to break down. Nicole's anxiety peaked as she waited for the flight to end. Each minute felt like an hour, each hour an eternity. She longed for the plane to land, not just to escape the cramped space, but to pursue the truth about what happened. Her thoughts were consumed by the need for answers, the need to understand why her daughter, the light of her life, had retreated into such a profound silence. As the plane began its descent, Nicole braced herself for what was to come. She knew she had to confront Edith once more, to demand answers she felt were owed. The thought of another confrontation filled her with a mix of dread and determination. She glanced out the window, watching as the ground drew nearer, each passing moment bringing her closer to the impending resolution of this unsettling mystery. Through the remaining hours of the flight, Deed's silence persisted, a stark, unyielding presence. Nicole tried to engage her, using every approach she could think of: gentle coaxing, playful banter, even direct questions. But Deed remained unresponsive, her gaze distant and detached. This continued muteness was unlike anything Nicole had witnessed before, leaving her feeling helpless and increasingly concerned about her daughter's well-being. Nicole's frustration mounted as D-Day continued to ignore her attempts at communication. Each failed effort to elicit a response from her daughter chipped away at Nicole's patience. She couldn't understand this sudden barrier between them. Deed's usual chatter and laughter were replaced by an impenetrable silence that seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. Nicole felt a growing sense of unease, unable to reach the child she knew so well. In her seat, Nicole sat quietly, reflecting on the day's events. Her mind churned with unanswered questions and theories about what had transpired between Edith and Deed. The lack of answers left her feeling lost in a maze of confusion. She replayed their interactions, searching for any missed clues, any indication of what had caused Dee's abrupt change. But the answers remained elusive, deepening her sense of helplessness. Nicole tried different tactics in a quiet, desperate attempt to break through to Deed. She whispered stories, offered her favorite snacks, and even promised a new game on her iPad, all to no avail. Deed's uncharacteristic disengagement felt like a rejection, a wall Nicole couldn't seem to climb. Each failed attempt intensified Nicole's worry, leaving her wondering what could possibly have caused such a drastic change in her daughter. As the plane touched down, the cabin filled with the usual bustle of landing, seat belts clicking, overhead bins opening, passengers chatting. But in Nicole's row, silence prevailed. Dide remained mute, her eyes fixed vacantly on the seat back in front of her. Nicole's heart sank. She had hoped the end of the flight might bring a return to normalcy, but as they taxied to the gate, Deed's silence loomed larger than ever. As soon as the plane's wheels touched the ground, a remarkable change overtook Dide. She bounced back to her usual lively self, her eyes sparkling with the familiar energy that Nicole knew so well. The transformation was so sudden and stark that Nicole could only watch in stunned silence. The silent, distant child of the flight was gone, replaced by the joyful, chattering daughter she had always known. Nicole's heart swelled with relief at the sight of her daughter's restored vibrancy. The laughter and animated chatter from Dide felt like music to her ears. It was as if the flight's strange ordeal had never happened. Nicole embraced Dide, feeling a flood of gratitude and relief wash over her. For a moment, the worries and unanswered questions faded into the background, overshadowed by the joy of having her daughter back. Despite the relief of seeing Dide's return to normalcy, Nicole couldn't shake off the lingering questions. What had caused Dide's silence? Why did it vanish as suddenly as it had appeared? These thoughts gnawed at Nicole as she gathered their belongings. The mystery of the flight hung over her, a puzzle with missing pieces that left her feeling unsettled and perplexed. As they walked down the aisle to deplane, Nicole's mind was a whirlpool of doubts and unresolved queries. Each step towards the exit was a step away from the strange episode, yet the mystery remained, trailing behind them like a shadow. Nicole glanced at Deed, chatting away happily, and wondered if she would ever uncover the truth behind the bewildering silence that had enveloped her daughter. In the bustling atmosphere of the airport, the echo of the flight's events lingered in Nicole's mind. She watched Deed, now completely at ease amidst the chaos of their surroundings, and felt a mix of relief and confusion. The contrast between the silent child on the plane and the vibrant girl now walking beside her was stark. Nicole pondered over the enigma, her thoughts lost amidst the cacophony of the busy terminal. As they navigated through the crowded airport, Nicole seized a quiet moment to ask Deed directly, "Why were you so quiet on the plane?" Deed, skipping alongside, turned to her with a small, enigmatic smile and said, "Because I had to." The simplicity and mystery of the response left Nicole puzzled. She prodded further, but Deed only shrugged, her cryptic smile unwavering, deepening the mystery. Deed's mysterious demeanor was uncharacteristic, leaving Nicole more perplexed than ever. The child's smile, usually a source of joy, now seemed to mask an unknown secret. As they continued through the airport, Dide hummed a tune, her carefree attitude in stark contrast to Nicole's growing concern. The more Nicole pondered over her daughter's cryptic words, the more she felt an urgent need to unravel the mystery. Shutterstock.com, Vladimir Arndt. Nicole's concern intensified with each step. Edith's influence over Deed seemed undeniable now, but the nature of it remained elusive. The transformation from Dide's prolonged silence back to her normal self was too abrupt, too unnatural. Nicole's maternal instincts warned her that something significant had transpired, something that Deed wasn't disclosing. The unknowns of the situation weighed heavily on her, fueling a growing sense of unease. The cryptic nature of D-Day's response haunted Nicole. "Because I had to," the phrase echoed in her mind, a puzzle with missing pieces. Nicole replayed the flight's events, seeking clues in her memories. What power did Edith hold to prompt such a drastic change in her daughter? The mystery consumed her thoughts, driving her to seek out the only person who might hold the answers. Resolved to uncover the truth, Nicole decided to confront Edith one more time. As they made their way towards the exit, she scanned the crowd for the elderly woman. The need for answers overshadowed her apprehension about another confrontation. Nicole was determined to unravel the mystery of D-Day's behavior, to protect her daughter, and to put her own restless mind at ease. Nicole, with a mix of apprehension and resolve, approached Edith as they disembarked from the plane. "We need to talk about what happened on the flight," she stated firmly, locking eyes with the elderly woman. Edith paused, her expression a blend of surprise and composure. Nicole's heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. This was the moment she had been anticipating, the chance to finally uncover the truth behind her daughter's mysterious silence. Their interaction immediately caught the attention of other passengers in the bustling airport. Curious and concerned glances were cast their way, as whispers spread among the onlookers. Some bystanders seemed poised to intervene, sensing the potential for conflict in Nicole's urgent tone. The air was thick with anticipation and speculation as the crowd watched the unfolding drama between Nicole and the seemingly unflappable Edith. Surprisingly, Edith responded calmly, "All right, let's talk." She gestured towards a quieter area of the airport, leading Nicole away from the prying eyes of their fellow passengers. Nicole, taken aback by Edith's willingness to engage, followed with a mix of relief and trepidation. Her mind was a whirlwind of questions and theories, each step towards the coffee shop bringing her closer to the elusive answers she sought. They found a relatively private spot in the airport's coffee shop and sat down opposite each other. Nicole, her hands nervously intertwined, braced herself for the conversation. The surrounding airport noise dimmed into the background as she focused intently on Edith. The tension was palpable, the air charged with the weight of Nicole's anticipation and the importance of the conversation that was about to unfold. Edith spoke first, her voice calm yet assertive. "I noticed today on the plane that you weren't very attentive to Dide," she began, her words deliberate. The criticism hit Nicole hard, a mixture of guilt and defensiveness rising within her. She had been engrossed in her book, that was true, but she had never anticipated such consequences from a brief lapse in attention. Edith's frank observation set the tone for a conversation that Nicole knew would be both challenging and necessary. Nicole nodded, acknowledging Edith's criticism. "I know I should have been more attentive," she admitted, her voice tinged with regret. "But there's more to this, isn't there?" Her eyes searched Edith's, looking for an underlying truth. The admission was difficult, yet necessary, as she strived to understand the full picture. Nicole's acceptance of partial blame did not diminish her determination to unearth the entire story behind Dee Dee's silence. Nicole took a deep breath, then spoke of her role as a mother. "I care deeply for Dee, and her well-being is my top priority," she began, her voice steady and sincere. "The book was a momentary lapse, but I've always been there for her." Her defense was not just about justifying her actions. It was a heartfelt expression of her commitment to her daughter, a commitment that felt questioned under the current circumstances. Edith listened intently, then nodded slightly, indicating she was about to speak. The air between them thickened with suspense. Nicole felt her heart rate quicken in anticipation of the revelation. Edith's demeanor suggested that what was coming next was significant, possibly the key to the mystery that had enveloped Nicole's thoughts since the flight. The tension was almost tangible, as Nicole braced herself for what she hoped would be the truth. Edith leaned forward, her eyes meeting Nicole's. "What happened on the plane," she began, her voice low and measured, "was something I felt compelled to do." She paused, as if weighing her words carefully. Nicole's anticipation grew with each passing second. Edith's deliberate manner of speaking, her pauses and thoughtful expressions all contributed to an atmosphere rife with expectation and the promise of imminent answers. Nicole leaned in closer, hanging on Edith's every word. The anticipation was almost overwhelming. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the cusp of understanding what had caused Daide's uncharacteristic behavior. Every second that passed without Edith speaking felt like an eternity. Nicole's gaze was fixed intently on Edith, ready to absorb the explanation that she hoped would resolve the myriad questions swirling in her mind. Edith began recounting the flight, her voice steady but reflective. "I tried to be patient," she said. "I understand children can be restless." She detailed how she endured Deed's incessant poking and loud remarks, her tone tinged with the weariness of the experience. "I attempted to engage her, to divert her attention," Edith continued, "but nothing seemed to work." Her recounting painted a picture of a woman pushed to her limits by a child's unruly behavior. "The final straw," Edith explained, "was when Daide started kicking the back of the seat in front of her, disturbing other passengers." She sighed, conveying the frustration she felt at that moment. "I realized then that something had to be done." Her words suggested a turning point, a moment when patience gave way to a need for action. Nicole listened, understanding the challenge Edith faced, yet anxious about what came next. "Out of options, I made her a proposal," Edith revealed, her voice lowering. "It was unconventional, but I felt it was necessary under the circumstances." The gravity of her decision was evident in her expression, one of someone who had made a tough choice in a difficult situation. Nicole's eyes widened, sensing the significance of this revelation. What could this proposal be that had such a profound effect on Daide? Edith paused, her gaze meeting Nicole's. The air was thick with anticipation. Nicole leaned forward, her heart pounding with the suspense of the impending revelation. This pause, intentional or not, heightened the drama of the moment. Edith's face held a solemn expression, hinting at the gravity of what she was about to disclose. The seconds ticked by slowly, each one stretching the tension to its breaking point. As Edith gathered herself to speak, Nicole felt a mix of fear and eagerness. This was the moment of truth, the point where all would be revealed. "What I offered Deed," Edith began, her voice steady yet laden with significance, "was something I hoped would ensure peace for the remainder of the flight." Nicole's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing with possibilities. What had Edith proposed to her daughter? Edith's voice was calm as she delivered the astonishing revelation. "I offered Deed $100 to remain silent for the rest of the flight." The words hung in the air, stark and unbelievable. Nicole stared at Edith, trying to process this unexpected confession. The elderly woman's face showed a mix of resignation and justification, as if acknowledging the extremity of her action while standing by her decision. "It might seem excessive," Edith continued, "but to me it was a trivial expense for some peace." She explained that her financial comfort allowed her the luxury of such unusual solutions. Her tone was matter-of-fact, suggesting that this wasn't a decision made lightly, but one born out of desperation and facilitated by her means. This perspective offered Nicole a glimpse into Edith's world, where money could be used to solve immediate problems. Nicole was taken aback, her emotions a whirlwind of surprise and indignation. "You paid my daughter to be quiet?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. The notion that someone would use money to influence her child's behavior was unsettling. Nicole struggled to reconcile the relief she felt at the harmlessness of the situation with her discomfort at the method Edith had chosen. As the initial shock subsided, Nicole began to understand why D-Day had kept their agreement a secret. The allure of $100, a significant sum for a child, must have been incredibly tempting. Deed's silence, previously a source of deep concern, now appeared in a new light. Not a result of fear or harm, but a child's desire to keep a lucrative promise. This realization brought a mix of emotions to Nicole, from relief to a lingering unease. Nicole sat back, pondering the implications of Edith's actions and Dee acceptance of the offer. The simplicity of the solution belied its ethical complexity. While she was relieved that the situation wasn't as sinister as she had feared, Nicole couldn't help but feel unsettled about the dynamics at play. Edith's unconventional approach had resolved the immediate issue, but it left Nicole contemplating the deeper lessons and consequences of this experience for both her and Deed. The reason behind Deed's silence was now apparent. She had been motivated by the secret of keeping the money. Understanding this, Nicole saw her daughter's behavior in a new light. It wasn't fear or discomfort that had kept D-Day quiet, but the allure of a reward. This revelation shed new light on the situation, simplifying what had once seemed a complex and worrying mystery. Nicole grappled with mixed emotions. She was upset with Edith's method of resolving the situation, feeling that it undermined her authority as a parent and set a questionable example for Deed. Yet, she couldn't deny her relief that the situation wasn't more sinister. The relief was palpable, but so was the unease about the precedent this might set for her daughter's expectations in the future. Reflecting on the day's events, Nicole pondered the lessons learned. She recognized areas where her own parenting could be more attentive and proactive. Edith's unconventional approach, while not something Nicole would endorse, had effectively resolved a difficult situation. This experience highlighted the complexities of parenting and the diverse ways of handling challenging behaviors, leaving Nicole with much to consider about her own approaches. As they prepared to part ways, Nicole thanked Edith for her candor. Their conversation, though challenging, had provided closure. Edith's parting words were a mix of advice and reflection, leaving Nicole with food for thought. As they went their separate ways, Nicole felt a sense of resolution, albeit with lingering questions about the nuances of parenting and the unpredictable challenges it brings. Exiting the airport with Deed, Nicole felt a blend of relief and newfound understanding. The day had been a journey in more ways than one, filled with unexpected challenges and valuable insights. As they stepped into the familiar outside world, Nicole felt more equipped, more aware of her daughter's needs, and the complexities of guiding her through life's unexpected moments.